Today's message from Reverend Christian Sorensen was recorded April 24th, 2016, and is titled, Rest in God, subtitled, Are you the one who listens to your heart, soul, and rests in spirit, doing what you are called to do? Come visit us sometime at seasidecenter.org or join us in Encinitas, California sometime, where great music, a spirited message, and a joyful, loving community always await you.
Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home, 'cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome
Because today is about resting in God. It is about giving up the struggle, trying to make things happen and live with an ease and live with a grace and recognize it is not mine to make the healing happen, but rather what I need to do for things to shift in my world is to recognize Spirit. When I come into that divine realization, healing happened, shifts happen. But what happens prior to that is our head runs amok and it starts thinking all sorts of things, and we lose that deeper connection, which is why we're told to just rest in Spirit. Rest in those ever-loving arms of God. I love this story. And you probably, I don't know if you heard it or not, but it's been well told about a fisherman who lives down by the beach. And there he was, midday sun after his fishing, just watching his boat anchored and moving with the waves out there, kicking back in the hammock, watching the waves roll in, and just no concerns, no worries, just loving life. And he's startled out of that place when this well-dressed businessman shows up and says, "Hey, what are you doing just lying there? You should be out fishing." And the guy says, "Well, I was out fishing this morning, and I caught my fish. I sold them in the market, and that's it." But he said, "You could be out there fishing and doubling your money." And he says, "But why? What for?" He said, "Well, so you could go out and, buy a bigger and better boat so you could catch more fish." And he says, "But why? What for?" He said, "Well, then you could get some employees and you could maybe buy some more boats and maybe you could have a whole fleet of boats." And he said, "But why? What for?" He said, "Well, so you could make a lot of money." And he said, "But why? What for?" He said, "Well, if you had a lot of money, then you could do all day what you want to do. You could relax, lie in the sun, have no worries, have no concerns." It's like our head gets in there. Yeah, you like that one, huh? Our head starts getting in there. What happens is we give the chatter and the thoughts and the conversation in our head the precedent over our heart. We give it the precedent over what is happening in life. What is happening in life is God. What is happening in life is the unfoldment of the Spirit. And all of a sudden, my head starts chattering, trying to analyze, define, and give an understanding to what is going on, as opposed to just listening to the heart and the soul that is there within inside of our being. It's up to us to begin to open up to the Spirit, to be able to have that greater sense and that greater realization of the presence of God in our life. And as we do that, what begins to unfold is a greater understanding. You see, you are you're the miracle. You can be the miracle in your life. And you can be the miracle for others. I mean, that is a wonderful thing to be able to do, is to be the miracle for other people. That's what we've come, is to be that blessing. And we can do that by just listening to the heart and the soul and showing up and recognizing a healing or a miracle doesn't mean you need to go heal somebody. One of your friends probably is at home and feeling lonely and praying to God, for a friend. And you give them a call and say, "Hi, I was just thinking about you." Now that's a miracle. Or someone who may have got a poor report back from a doctor and is just not feeling good and praying to God, "Give me a sign." And you call that friend and say, "Hey, I was just thinking about you. I just wanted you to know that everything's going to be all right. And I'm here, I'm thinking about you." But to be that miracle, it takes some time. It takes a willingness to be used by that presence in our life. It takes a willingness to be used by Spirit to step forward. But I have people share with me all the time, but Christian, you don't understand. I'm the one who needs the miracle. I'm the one who needs the healing. But don't we know that if you become the miracle and you share the miracle, you cannot help but to be a recipient to being the experiencer of the miracle, because what you put out is what comes back. And so as you begin to rest in Spirit and you begin to do what is in your heart and your soul, and you're listening to that vibration of your inner being as opposed to listening to the head that's saying it should be, I have to do this to make this happen. What happens is you begin to do what it is that is necessary to do in your life. You begin to make a difference with individuals. I'll tell you what, I have people say that, but I can't make a difference with everyone. But you know what? You can make a difference with someone. What is it that you can do that can be a difference? So how can I rest and be willing to make the difference? The story I do remember from childhood is the one about the kid who was up on the cliff looking out at the beach and seeing in the distance the guy throwing, something out in the ocean. As he came down the bluff and out to the ocean, and the tide was low, the beach was just strewed with all these starfish that were out there, and he was wondering, oh my, there's those starfish got a problem. And he went up to the guy and he saw what he was throwing out weren't rocks but starfish. And he said, how in the world are you going to be able to make a difference by throwing those starfish back? And he bent over and he picked up a starfish and he threw it out in the ocean. Said, made a difference to that one. I made a difference to that one. What is it that you can do? See, if you can just rest in Spirit and say, okay, use me, God. I may not be here to change everyone or the world, but what is it that I can do? There's an interesting conversation going on right now on the ministers' listserv. And that's where the ministers communicate back and forth in our movement. And in 2017, in February, we're having our annual convention. We have the annual convention every year, which is what makes the annual. And this year it was in Salt Lake City, and next year it's in Tennessee. And personally, I was kind of excited. I've never been there. But what has come up on the minister's listserv is that there is a law that is looking to be enacted, or a bill that's seeking to be passed on the Senate floor, that they call it a religious act of religious freedom, which is really just guise for being able to perpetuate bigotry and opposition to the LGBTQ community. LGBTQ community. And what's interesting is this Religious Freedom Act says, because it is against my religion, I can discriminate against you because I just don't approve of your lifestyle or who you are or what it is. And the law now protects me to be discriminatory in this kind of way. And so all of a sudden what's coming in on the listserv are individuals that say, we should pull out from going there. The big corporations are pulling out of Tennessee. And then there's other ministers that are saying, they really need us there at this time. They need us more than ever, because where there is pain or darkness, they need individuals to show up and say, here's the light. I love you unconditionally. And one of the ministers has been there for 30 years. It says, I've been living in this town for 30 years. I need your love and your consciousness more than ever to be unconditionally loving. And yet we've got other ministers who are writing back who are part of the LGBTQ community. My brothers and sisters who absolutely say, there's no way we can go there. We cannot support a state. Callie was teaching class on conscious consumerism, where you spend your money, speaks and makes a difference. Are we going to spend money and support a state that says it's okay to discriminate? One of my brothers said, I might be safe, but I don't want to be sitting in a restaurant with my partner with my arm around them and have the waitress come up and say, I'm not going to serve you. and not be fired because of that kind of choice, because there is a law that protects her religious right. There was another minister who shared from Dallas that was teaching a foundation class, and a 26-year-old gentleman, young man, was in the class and just shaking, and he shared how 6 months earlier, walking through a very progressive neighborhood, thousands of people around, he was beaten into unconsciousness because he was gay, and that when he came to from this monstrous beating, that was the least of the pain that he experienced in his heart and his soul, and the fear and the trembles that resides with him. And he shares that, you know what, you don't even get the nuances of things you take for granted that all of a sudden become realizations in our field of awareness. And what I begin to understand within my heart and soul is, do I really want to go to a hotel that refuses to serve women? Out of respect, I would not go back to that hotel. Well, we got a whole state that refuses to serve a contingency of our population that are our brothers and our sisters, and you know what? It is not okay. And so it's interesting for me is that as a minister, I don't know if it's a good thing, it's actually confusing. I have an ability to understand sometimes both sides of the equation and understanding. And so I have to ask myself, and this is where I think about resting in spirit, is because my head wants to take precedent and says, hey, this is what it's got to be. But what I know is this is a hard issue, and I have to get quiet enough and silent enough so I can quiet the chatter in my mind and begin to listen to my heart. And it says, you know what? Martin Luther King was willing to walk in the midst of the civil rights and make a difference. But I also realize that it's not mine at this point in my life to march. And I've linked arms and I've walked down streets and protest. But I'll tell you what, I'm not in the point where I am going to go at this point in my life and take out the ads and make the statement to change the legislation. But where I am at and what I can do, and I can make a difference. I can't throw all the starfish back, but what I can do is make a difference with one. And what I realize is my brothers and sisters who are saying, we're not going to a state that discriminates, that what I can do is I can stand with those friends of mine that are asking for support, and I say, you can count me in. This I can do at this time in my life to make a difference. And as I touch my heart, I ask myself, Spirit, what is it? And I said, this is what I can do. And see, that's the thing when you choose to be a miracle. What is it that you can do? It's going to take some time. Like the Good Samaritan. You know that story that Jesus told in Luke 10? There was a guy who was on his way from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he was taken by some bandits. He was beaten to nearly death and left to die. And on that road, later on in the day, came walking a priest, and he saw the guy and, ooh, I'll pray for you, and just kept going. A little bit later, a Levite came by, which is assistant to the priest. He didn't walk by. He at least went over and said, oh, I am so sorry for you, and then went on. As the third one who we hear about is the Good Samaritan, who came to this guy and got down on his knees and shared some water, took his scarf off, bandaged him up, put him on the animal that he had, rode him into town, spent the night, made sure he was okay, paid his bill in the morning, and told the innkeeper if there was any more expense, he'd catch up with him on the way back. And what I like to ask myself, and I guess I'll ask you, which one of those guys are you? Are you the one who didn't have time? You're too busy. Are you the one who said, oh, I feel so sorry, and kept going? Or are you the one who listened to your heart and soul, who rests in spirit and said, hey, this is my place to act at this time, and I'm going to be one who makes a difference? Because I'm going to tell you, true religion gets dirty. It doesn't hide behind the stained glass and the robes. It is willing to get down in the muck as to where it is going on and to bring the light, to bring the truth, to bring the message to where it is. True religion gets dirty, and true religion is not judgmental and saying, oh, this person, I don't know, what's in their consciousness that got them beaten and brought it upon themselves. It's not judgmental saying this addict, boy, they brought it upon themselves. They deserve to be in this spot for recovery. No. It is, I am a conduit of the divine expression of God. I'm going to get out of the chatter in my head that's trying to figure out how this person caused this in their life, and I'm going to be used by Spirit. I'm going to be the miracle here. You have come here to be a blessing. You have come here to be a miracle. You have come here to make a difference. And I want you to know that when you rest in Spirit, you know when to act and where to move and what difference to make in life and in the world. And you will stand up boldly. I mean, this week, our weekend, particularly, our nation just mourns the death of a wonderful rock star prince. And it's just amazing how this individual for the last 3 decades just changed the music world, stood up in a bold way, in an individualistic kind of way that is unrepeatable, that did not mimic anybody who came before him, and was bold enough to stand and share a music that came from the depths of his soul, that the president, before going on the world stage, listened, or at least this is what he shared when he stepped onto the world stage, is before he got into the international communications, he played Prince's songs, Purple Rain, and there was another one. There were 2 of them he listened to. No. Is there like not Defiance? Oh. You know what? He has touched all of us, I can tell. We are filled with the songs that we remember and make a difference. I love looking out and seeing the purple that is filling the house today. Here's an individual that, from politicians on Fox News to MSNBC, we're talking about how this guy stood boldly in his truth and expressed in a unique way. Challenges come is when that unique expression steps outside of their genre and starts expressing new perspectives that the world is not used to hearing, that gets people in trouble sometimes. But we've got to be willing to just quiet that chatter in the head. Why does our mind always have to define the experience? Why can't I just sit there and mourn? Why do I have to have my head analyzing what it is that I'm feeling? I didn't know Prince, but I still feel something. Someone once shared, it was saying that we cry not because we know those musicians, but they helped us to know ourselves. When there's something inside of you that can be touched and not analyzed by a chattering mind, that can let go of the concerns and just be, transformation begins to happen. Spirit begins to unfold. And who you are is making a difference. You know where to stand and what to say and what to do. No matter who you are, you can become the miracle. You may not be that for everyone, but as I said, you can be that for someone. You may remember the story from, actually it was 1995. Mom gave birth to twins. They were 12 months premature, and these 2 preemies were sitting in... Well, I'll start over. I'm not even sure where I messed up, but I'm sure I did somewhere. 12 weeks. Got it. Good. Rebecca's got me covered. I know where I can look. This mom gave birth 12 weeks earlier. Glad to know you guys are paying attention. The women are. Guys, 12 weeks, 12 months, we wouldn't do it one way or the other. Okay, so anyway, back to 1995. Mom gives birth 12 weeks early, and these 2 little babies are sitting in their separate incubators, and one of them is responding, is growing, good color, is breathing fine. The other one is dying. The heart is not working, the body's turning blue, it losing weight, and it's pretty eminent that it's going to die. The nurses got together and made a push for the hospital to change the rulings. Back in those days, you couldn't put babies together. They were in separate incubators, but the nurses says, you know what, we should really give this a try. They've been sitting together for the last 6 months. They'd be good. And so they put these two babies together. And you might remember this picture, but that stronger of the two sisters somehow during the night put her arm around her little baby sister. And by morning, that little baby sister's heart began to work in a regular kind of way. The color came back to her, and she began to breathe, and truly a miracle. Even at that age, you can be that miracle for someone. And today, I just saw their picture. Marv, you got that? There are those two sisters, all grown up, healthy as can be. When you rest in spirit, you'll know what it is yours to do. See, this Sunday mornings we come here, we get inspired, we get encouraged, we get fed, we get filled up. But I want you to get that the real work happens when you leave here. The real work happens when you step out into life and you have the opportunity to make that difference, to become that miracle, to be that spiritual leader, to bring that new thought to a situation that seems eminently not good. You bring a new thought and a new way of being, and all of a sudden, you may not be able to change the whole legislation, but you can find those individuals that resonate with your heart and soul and say, I stand with you. I stand with you because God stands with me. And my mind has been quieted enough to realize that now is the moment where God is. There was a warrior who was thrown in jail, and his mind, he couldn't sleep that night because his mind was so busy because he knew he was going to be tortured the next morning. And then he remembered what his teacher said. He said, tomorrow is not real. You only have now. He came back into the now, and he went to sleep. You can conjure up all the fears you want, but you know what? Now is a beautiful moment. Now is where the presence of God is. You can have concerns about what may have happened in your past or what you didn't do or what you said. But now is where you're at. You may have concerns about what it is you're going to do in the future. But no one ever gets to live in the future. You only get to live now. Now is the moment where the fullness of the Spirit expresses. And when you rest in that, you will be able to stand as boldly as a prince in his musical expression, as boldly as those with the LGBTQ community, and say, I'm with you, because our rights are for all of us. You're able to stand with a deep sense of rest because there's no fear, because I am doing what I've been called to do and what I've called to be. I rest in that kind of knowingness. And now is when I am moved to put my arm around those that could use the extra comfort, that could use the call, that could hear that voice of my heart saying, yes, it's going to be okay. You are a miracle bringer because you are the miracle. So let us all know the truth of you. God bless you in that. I love you.
Such a long way home from where you have been. And what will it take to bring you back again? And all your searching's brought you to this place. You cry for mercy and you long for grace. Feel the love, feel the light. Won't you come in from the cold? 'Cause all are welcome here. you to this place. You cry for mercy and you long for grace. Feel the love, feel the light. Won't you come in from the cold? 'Cause all are welcome here. Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home. 'Cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here. Here.
All Are Welcome Here, from the album Path of Light, was co-written by Peggy Lebo and Reverend Christian Sorensen. It's available at www.peggylebo.com.